Hi, my name is Jency Abarca. I'm the owner of VYB3 We're a streetwear brand that celebrates legacy, the legacy behind individuals like yourself, that in their pursuit of purpose, grind, and ambition. We're just here to remind you your dreams are valid. You don't need to kick like Messi, shoot like Kobe, or rap like Drake. Just find what you do and do you. Give it 365.
I'm Esther Medina, and this is Una Conversación. Jency is a powerhouse entrepreneur, redefining what it means to hustle with purpose. In today's episode, we discuss her journey as a business owner and how she's inspiring the next generation. So I have a question.
Yes.
It's a really deep question.
Okay. Wow. Right off the bat.
How are you?
I am great. I'm great. Like mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically, feel great. Obviously, life happens and it comes at you fast, but overall, like very blessed and great, you know, and feel God's favor in my life. So
you feel like, first of all, the people need to know this. I'm very excited for today's interview because Jency was the first person, and you don't know this, I'm giving you your flowers. You were the first person who has ever emailed me.
No way.
Like, people have DM'd me. I'm acting like there's so many people. Like, the one or two people, words are hard, that have DM'd me, asking to be on the show, wanting to collaborate, which I love and appreciate so much. It's always been through DM, right? And so I do have an email for the show, unaconversacion@gmail.com. Oh, wait, unaconversacionshow@gmail.com. Anyways.
One of those.
and like, it's there in my bio, but you were the first person who ever emailed, like, pitching an episode through there. And, like, I just need you to know, before we get into your story, I just want to walk you through what happened. Like, I literally was, like, at work, probably mad about something, I don't know, and I screamed. I was like, I just got an email to the podcast email.
That's
and
awesome.
From someone that wants to be on the show. Like, I think I even ran into, like, one of the host's office and was like, guys, look at this email. Like, I was hyped. So I just want to thank you for doing that and for putting yourself out there and just, like, even wanting to collaborate. I think that's so, like, I'm honored. And that was also quite a long time ago. So
it really was.
A lot had to happen for you to be on this couch. Just for me to, like, mentally, last year was crazy for me. And, like, I remember we spoke on the phone about wanting to make this happen. Just, I was telling you I wasn't sure when.
Yes.
So thanks for your patience, but also for giving me that space to, like, be a human.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely understand that. Well, I'm honored to be here with you too. Thank you so much.
And, like, you're just, like, your energy, your presence, like, the way you are, like, it's giving Godfidence. Like, where does that come from? Tell me about, like, how are you such a light on a daily basis?
To be quite honest with you, like, it is Godfidence. It's a huge transition from, like, people who knew me perhaps, like, when I was 17 years old till now. It's like a big drastic change, huge. But it's definitely always just been just understanding that, God is in control. Like, regardless of the circumstances that I'm going through, I've been through a lot, but regardless of what I've sort of experienced, I always ran back to God. Like, I always ran it back to God. I always said, this is what I'm being challenged with right now. This is how I'm feeling. And I think by being able to do that and making that a routine and making that a habit, I think it really keeps me centered and it keeps me grounded to focus on what it is that matters. And that's, like, the little gifts that God gives me. Like, I might not have everything, but, I have a family that loves me. I have complete strangers where I connect, and they're like, your energy. I'm able to have the ability to walk, to see, to hear, to speak, have control of my movements. Sometimes we lose sight of these little gifts that God gives us every single day because we're like, oh, we're not in the house we want. We don't have the job. We don't have the car. But it's like when you focus on the little ways that He blesses you, it counts like a win every single day. So
I see that, like, faith is very much the foundation of a lot of what you do. Mm-hmm. How would you explain something like that to someone who doesn't understand faith or has never experienced that? How do you incorporate, because you mentioned, you have your routines now, and, like, it sounds like it's almost disciplinary at this point to get to this stage. Like, what would you say to someone that doesn't have a faith or is curious about it, and how did you implement these routines into your life?
So the way that I would explain it to someone who perhaps hasn't had an encounter with God, I would explain it to them as, because sometimes religion will make you think like you have to come to Christ once you're already clean and once you're already perfect. But like what I always explain to people is like, do you take a shower when you're already clean? And everyone's going to say no. And like, exactly. So that's a relationship with God, right? You don't go to God when you're already clean and you're already polished up and you're already perfect, because he wants to accept you in your imperfection. And the reason why he wants to do that is so that his glory gets, so he gets all the glory. Like, yeah, like I chose that person out of that wreck and I positioned them where I'm at. And I think for me is just the routine that keeps me, number one is showing self-love to myself, right? And I do that in many ways, like through my self-talk, but a lot of it is always just bringing it back to self-love and knowing how it is that I want to project love onto others. Like I have to be an example of that and how I lead myself. So like exercising, staying connected with family and just being around like the vibes and the environments that uplift me and to fulfill me, and just learning how to say no. Like, no, I don't want to do that. No, I don't want to be around that person. No, I'm not going to do that. And like just standing so unapologetic towards that and just being comfortable being, I guess, the villain on other people's story as long as I'm the hero on my own. I think that that's how I've developed that type of routine, is just knowing that I'm my own individual and like I want to, as long as I'm growing, then that's fine, and I'm good with that. So developing that routine is just being focused on growth, making God the center of it, and then obviously showing myself self-love even through the moments where I feel I may have messed up or screwed up, like be more graceful towards myself.
I love this because, we're here today because you have this incredible brand that just captures community at its core. But I feel like it's important to like get to like what makes that person tick. And like, yeah, you have a brand and that's really cool. And it's something that I hope even for you that you get to leave behind, create this legacy. But it's like, while you're here, like I'm so curious to know what makes people tick and what are their kind of like non-negotiables. And what you've just described, I think describes that so perfectly, because all of those things that you're doing inevitably will pour into everything else you do, right? So like your self-love for yourself is how your cup can be full, so then you can go and run a business, right?
Exactly.
And so that's why I ask about that. For anyone who's listening, that is why I want to know about, like, I think that sometimes people are scared to talk about religion or like about the spirituality of humans, but like we're such complex beings and we're human beings. Like it's like an active experience that you have to participate in. So thank you for sharing that so beautifully. I'm inspired already.
Thank you so much.
It's been like 5 minutes. I'm like, oh my gosh, let me write this down. But I feel like through your growth, you have told your story many times, and about your beginnings. When you've told that story, the more times you tell it, are there things about your story that like you see differently now or that have surprised you along the way?
Definitely. So like, when we started VYB initially, it started off as a college project. Like I was studying public relations at Humber. Shout out to Humber Hawks. But I was studying at Humber. I studied public relations, and it started off as me having to write a blog assignment. And so I wrote it about hip hop, and then I sort of just kept on going with the blog, and like we kept on getting hits, like 296 every hour. So we were like, you know what, I'm onto something here. And then sort of like the brand came in after, but for the most part, I sort of put it on the back burner for a lot of years. So like from 2017 up until 2022, I didn't do anything with the brand. And then in 2022, I ended up getting my dream job, which was, I was a corporate girly. I was as a finance manager at a car dealership. It was a position that I had eyed ever since I walked into the dealership as the receptionist. And I always said to myself, I'm going to get in that box. No matter what, I'm going to get into it. And I had a couple of finance managers that I worked with, like, you'd be so good. You know, you're so great with customers. You handle customer resolution so good. And so I always wanted to accomplish that. I ended up accomplishing it, but in 10 months into that role, I ended up getting fired. And so that, at that time, I couldn't understand why I had gotten fired. Like, I was just like, what the hell? Like, this is what I wanted. It even got to the point where, like, I was like to God, like, yo, are you serious? Like, you brought me here just for me to fall flat on my face. That's how I was feeling in 2022. But then fast forward to now, as I'm sitting here on this couch, I had to go through that. I had to get comfortable with sales. What I'm doing is sales. Whether I'm physically selling a product or whether I'm physically pitching myself to somebody and describing to you guys what our legacy is, what we're trying to accomplish with VYB, it's a form of selling. So within that role, I realized I had to get comfortable with hearing the word no. And I had to get comfortable with asking for the sale. And without that position, I wouldn't have gotten comfortable with that, because I went from receptionist straight to finance manager. You usually go reception, sales floor, then finance manager. And everybody told me, you're never gonna be a finance manager. You have to be in sales. You have to go onto the sales floor before you become a finance manager. And then in 6 months, from being a receptionist to being an assistant, I became manager. So it's like, I had to get comfortable with that aspect of asking for the sale and get comfortable with hearing the word no and learning not to take it personal. Because sometimes the worst part as humans, right, is when we feel rejected or we feel like, you know, so it's just, you have to get comfortable with that. And it made it a lot easier for me to interact with people like you, right? Like, this is our first time meeting in person, and just getting comfortable with that. Because even with my PR background and working for Sony and stuff like that, I never got pushed to the forefront. Was like, I had to represent something. So now I'm representing something, which is for myself. So I feel that when it happened in 2022, I didn't appreciate it at its core. But it's like that passage that, you know, that's in the Bible, is like, you may not understand what I'm doing now, but later on you'll understand. It's like, I definitely understand it now, because now I'm comfortable with hearing no, and I'm comfortable with pitching myself to people.
I'm really inspired that, you know, I've heard your story, and that you always include that hiatus you kind of went on from 2017 to 2022. Mm-hmm. And I think that's so powerful, because, like, I just think people don't understand, because I've experienced that, like, walking away from something for a while and then coming back to it. Mm-hmm. But I don't know what the in-between looks like to everyone, right? Like, mm-hmm. to me, like, that in-between time is going to feel and look different for me than it does for you.
For sure.
And I'm just wondering, like, how did you navigate that in-between time? Like, in the sense, I'm curious to know if you were, like, consciously abandoning your brand. Like, was it something you never thought you were going to pick back up again? And if you thought you were going to pick it back up, like, how did you get yourself there?
So it's definitely something that I thought would never go anywhere. Like, I was just like, oh, whatever. Like, I did what I did. And I think maybe the people around me at that time, they were just like, you know, you need to focus on this, your career. You need to focus on how you're going to build yourself in real life. And I think that a lot of that, you know, sometimes we take what other people say on the outside and we sort of apply it to ourselves, even though it goes against what we personally believe in, but it just seems to make more sense when you're living in, like, I guess, reality and the realism of things. But for me, like, it's definitely something that I didn't think I would come back to. I just put it on a back burner. And once I did come back to it, ironically, the reason why I came back to it was because I visited a few of my friends in Miami that I hadn't seen in so long. Shout out to Dee, shout out to Hillary. If you guys are tuned in, I love you guys. But I landed after not seeing them for 6 years, and they picked me up from the airport. And the first thing that they asked me is like, how are you? And how's VYB? And this is coming from people that I'm not super close with. This is coming from people that only saw me doing VYB back in 2018. And mind you, it's 2022 now. So a couple of years have passed. I haven't done anything with VYB. So then when they asked me that, I kind of felt like ashamed, right? I kind of felt like, okay, like, what the heck have I done with VYB? So I haven't done anything. And so when we started talking, because they're business minded as well, they're like, if you came out to Miami, you could do pop-ups, you could do this, you could do that. Like, you need to get back into it. You had something good. The logo's sick. And then I was just like, you know what? Like, why not? And then I ended up coming back And again, it always leads back to God. But like I ended up coming back and I was like, okay, God, there's two paths. I can either go back to the corporate setting and be miserable, because I was miserable in that corporate setting. I was crying in between clients. Like I hated the job, but I loved the money, right? So I was just like, I hated it. I'm like, I could go back to that, or I could do this. And this is what I want to do with the brand from point A to point Z. If this aligns with you, let me know. And actually the account that I have right now that we've grown our following in, we were locked out of that account for like a year and a half. And then like literally the day after I said that, had that conversation with God on my kitchen table, 135 Woodward Avenue, I'll never forget. The next day I walked past my phone and God's like, try again, try and get in. And I literally looked up and I was like, what's the point, bro? We've been through this for a year and a half. I'm not gonna get in. He's like, just try again. I literally tried again and access granted. And then ever since then, I took that as a sign. I was like, all right, you're speaking to me, I'm gonna start cooking. So like I abandoned it, but then once like my friends started like, you have something good, they sort of planted the seed. And then I brought it to God and God's like, I'm gonna water that full out. And then I started picking up. But we've had our most success from 2022 up until now. Like that's where we've actually grown and spreaded our brand awareness, because we started implementing things that we didn't when we was back in 2017, because like back then I sort of just was throwing something against the wall, seeing if it stuck. I wasn't serious about it. There was no legacy, there was no purpose, there was no ambition, there was no drive. It was just like, let me just do something for sort of like for shits and giggles, right? But like now it's like, it was born out of like, I don't want to say desperation, but it was born out of loss. It was born with more of like a legacy, more of a purpose, more of like, I got this, more like I can do this. I need to prove it to myself. And then that's basically where we are now.
That's a lot of time to go by. And like, it speaks volumes that even after that time to go by, for it to still have like that, not just the same power, but even more power and influence in it. Like what I'm trying to say is, when you started this, I'm sure you went into it with like, you know, the most positive mindset. Like you wanted to create something great. You wanted to create something beautiful, but then life happens. Now you're back, you've picked it up. It almost seems like it needed to go under the fire, or it needed to be put on the back burner in order to be great again. My question is, now that the time has gone by and you're here now and you know what you stand for even more than you did before, what's your elevator pitch now?
So my elevator pitch, if I'm ever speaking to someone, and it's funny how you put me on the spot, because now with this competition, I was like, I need to go to networking events. So I like booked myself next week. You're going to see me downtown Toronto, all downtown Toronto, talking to everybody. But anyways, my elevator pitch to everybody is, hi, my name is Jency Abarca. I'm the owner of VYB3 CO. We're a streetwear brand that celebrates legacy, the legacy behind individuals like yourself, then their pursuit of purpose, grind, and ambition. We're just here to remind you your dreams are valid. You don't need to kick like Messi, shoot like Kobe, or rap like Drake. Just find what you do and do you. Give it 365.
That is so powerful.
Thank you. Yeah, it serves as a reminder, because sometimes like I remember like I was like 23 and I was telling one of my ex-boyfriend's sisters like, I don't know what I'm gonna do in my life. Like I don't have no talents and I'm not a master chef. I can't shoot a ball. I can't kick. I can't sing. And I was like going through like a midlife crisis in like my early 20s. And then sure enough, like one of my friends is like, but the way you speak to people is a talent. Like the way that you get people to relate to you and open up and feel comfortable with you, and the fact that you make complete strangers laugh, even the most miserable of people, you like get them to smile and joke with you, and you put their walls down. He's like, that's a gift. Like that in itself is a gift. And like, I just ran with it, and then I did PR and I sort of brought it out. So yeah.
I feel like I can only imagine and can imagine where you'll be in 10 years, and that's a loaded question in itself. So maybe we won't actually label it as like 5 years, 10 years. But in general, at this time, like what do you see VYB3 CO being once, you know, you're gray and old? Like what is you're looking back at your the legacy that you've been building, that you've been wanting to leave behind. What does that look like?
What it looks like for us is recognizing the legacy of people who are already in the pursuit of that. So for us, we've been extremely fortunate in the sense that we've managed to connect with people who are already on that journey, who are already sort of establish or set a foot, like a foot stamp in their legacy. People like Canadian icon Donovan Bailey. Like, this is an athlete. When I used to go to elementary school in St. Augustine on Shoreham, I used to walk out of my gymnasium at the age of 10, 11, and we used to have a big portrait canvas of Donovan Bailey, this Canadian track star who only, Usain Bolt is the only one who broke his record. And I used to walk out and look at this canvas every single day. I didn't even know who that was. And then fast forward 20 plus years later, I'm sitting at Coast, I think Coast or Cost, and I'm interviewing him, and we're having lunch, and we're connecting. Legacy, connect with Davies, connect with Tony Yeo, connect with Tonio Skits, connect with DJ Adoni. These are all people that started from nothing and somehow created something that's gonna outlive them. So for us, like, what that looks like, it's just getting more people aware of our brand, what it represents, and getting them excited for it. But most importantly, it's putting our footprint in the world, and like I mentioned, opening up storefronts. Like, one of them obviously has to be in Toronto, our hometown, you already know. So one would be in Toronto, the second one would be in New York, and the third one would be in Japan. The reason why I was telling you Japan is because Japan is actually very influenced and has a huge love for urban and streetwear culture. So even being able to identify those niches and those markets, that's where we feel like just being able to expand our network, expand the legacy that we're growing, and then getting people to remember their dreams are valid. You don't need to kick like Messi, shoot like Kobe, or rap like Drake, or rap like Kendrick, whatever your preference is. Just find what you do and give it 365. 1% better each day, and every single day you make a daily deposit, you're gonna be able to make a withdrawal out of that soon. But you have to be able to just, I want to be able, our legacy in 10 years or in 5 years, just to remind people, like, just go at it every single day. Find what you do, give it 365, and you're going to see the results that come through.
I love that so much.
Thank you.
Jency, before I let you go, I was hoping that you could tell our viewers and listeners a bit about the contest that you're a part of, so that, they can see what you're all about and hopefully support after seeing this.
Yes. So, guys, we have been considered for this year's Forbes Entrepreneur of Impact. And the way that this particular competition works is due to public voting. So thankfully for my tribe, everybody that has been voting for us along the way, we have managed to become number 2 out of 27,000 submissions. So way to go, Toronto. Thank you for your support. And basically we're in the competition to win our story in our city, to be placed inside Forbes magazine where it belongs. Mentorship program with Damon John, who's the creator of FUBU. So streetwear meets legendary streetwear, because FUBU was everywhere when I was growing up. And then lastly, to win $25,000 to develop new merchandise for you guys, store placements, more collaborations with people who are like big platforms, like New York Fashion Week is another opportunity that we got. So this competition just allows us to feed into that vision and feed into the legacy that we're trying to build, not just for ourselves, but for our city too, because Toronto produces greatness. In the words of Julie Black, true legends are born out of Jane and Finch, and I just want to be able to break that stigma, give birth to another voice that's coming out of the same community, and know, like, well, she did it, why can't I do it? Because that's sort of like what happened when I saw Barrio, right? Like, and I heard his bench story out of South and I was like, he could do that, I could do that too. So yeah. That's
like, bro, you're blowing me away. Like, I can't believe you're on my couch right now, because you're not gonna be like this accessible anymore. What you mean? It's been so long since I've sat with someone that like speaks with such confidence in themselves, and it's so refreshing. It's so refreshing because it unintentionally inspires. Like, it's addicting. Like, I feel like I can do anything now after talking to you.
Thank you. And that's sort of like, it's like that poem, our deepest fear. Our deepest fear is not that we're inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we're powerful beyond measure,
Wow.
So just keep that in mind.
Jency, thank you so much for being on the show, for shining your light and for creating something that isn't just about you or for you. It's for the people, it's for the world. And I can't wait to see you reach all your goals and more. You are gonna kill it. Please follow Jency. Where can our viewers and listeners follow you?
You guys can catch us on Instagram at official VYB3. So VYB3, you already know. On Instagram, we're also on TikTok. Our TikTok is a little bit dry, I'm not gonna lie. You'll catch more action on Instagram.
When does the contest end?
So the contest ends on March 27th.
So there's time.
Yeah, there's a lot of public voting, so let's get the votes through so I can be one of the finalists and be a winner. From my lips to God's ears.
Amen. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much.